Have you identified any common patterns that are just good form, right? So if we want to pursue a sports analogy here, of course, there are many ways to, score a basket, but then there's good form, right? Which you follow, then you will have better results in the long run. So have you found any storytelling techniques? And feel free to go strategic or tactical on this, by the way, you found work well.
Okay. So my first answer is probably not a direct answer to your question, but the second one will be better, I promise, right? The first one is you should absolutely cheat when storytelling, right? What I mean by this is we talk about negotiation skills, storytelling skills, obviously analytics skills as being important. They're all super important to telling a powerful story and having it land. But something I think you don't hear a lot about, but it's super important, is organizational intelligence, understanding the organization in which you are telling the story, who are the power brokers in that organization, who are the decision makers, who are the people who are ambitiously seeking the new position that's just opened up, who are the people whose budgets just got cut in half. Before you show up at a negotiation with another company, you do your homework on what are that company's interests likely to be, what pressures are on this company to move fast, where are the different corners of that company's position. If you want to tell a story effectively, especially if you're an analytics leader and you're hoping that this business leader will take your message positively or will change their behavior based on what you're recommending, do your homework before you show up. What's going on in their life? How is their team performing? How does their paycheck get assembled? Understand all those pieces that are kind of following them into this meeting. And then if you just know that in the back of your head, the way you tell your story will change. If you don't do that homework, if you walk into a room and you know this person is the vice president of such and such, and you do have a cool model, you're going to have way less impact than if you know, hey, this person just got into this role, they're 4 months in, they're looking to make their mark, or this person has been here 25 years, this is their dynasty. We're talking about something that they developed 15 years ago and that has stood the course of time. It's a very different story you'll tell either way. The second one, which I think is a little bit more practical, that's like a pretty staggering one to do the first one. The second one is whenever you're telling a story, start with something familiar. Start with something everybody knows. That is your first slide if you're doing PowerPoint, your first story if you're opening to a group should be something that is familiar to everyone and that reminds us all we're kind of on the same page, right? So start with your company's last earnings release. Start with the last meeting where you all met together. If you jump in and say, hey, we're going to look at this new algorithm we've developed and it's super advanced, some people feel thrilled, other people will feel left out. But if you start with, hey, here's what we're all here to do together, and here's what we did last time, and here's how our company views our business, then everybody can get around the table and be reminded we're all part of this story. And then you can go ask some tough questions, bring up some problems, suggest some change. So start with the familiar is my best advice.
That's a really cool advice. And especially because we see now as we step back that good storytelling, whatever field you're in, whether you're a small business owner looking for investment, whether you're a senior analytics executive, engaging your key stakeholders on the board is the same idea, right? You're trying to, I know that the word sell has bad rep, but also because people usually don't know how to sell. So it also comes from an insecurity, but you need to sell every single idea all the time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And people, so when it comes to sales, a lot of people think that, wow, look, I'm not, Gordon Gekko. I'm not, I don't have this unbreakable charisma. It's not going to happen. Well, actually, sales is more of a science than an art. Of course, with everything, it's a mix. But the foundations are very straightforward. So, for example, what you just said, the familiarity is one of those things. In fact, as we think about, for example, getting investment, venture capital is a great example of how people make decisions, right? And usually what small business owners do is that they are in love with their product, right? They are in love with their own business. And when they go and approach someone with an ask, they immediately start with that. They immediately start with the how. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it, right? And that's all fine. But first things first, right? So you always go from the general and the universal to the specific. It's like very simple idea, but if you reflect on most of your interactions, most people, including myself, I need to drink my own Kool-Aid too, we are guilty of not following that right pattern, right?
Sure.
And but what you said, familiarity in a business setting, yes, what everyone knows. But even if you don't have that, you can go from the universal, a general trend, right?
Absolutely.
And then you start zooming in. Why is this relevant to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on is like, okay, this is the idea. This is how the future could look like. And this is how we can make that happen, right? So if we look at even these shapes, one is just creating merely curiosity. Then you need to make that intriguing to interesting to create the want. And then in this decision-making cycle of every individual, once we're past the emotional stage, which I know that everyone thinks that they are making decisions logically. That's just not the case. It's always an emotional decision, need to be reinforced and justified logically, right? So that's a great point, and I think you're putting it even better. I'm going out on this like lengthy explanation, but yours is so simple and actionable. Familiarity. Sure. What is this person familiar with?
Yeah, and once you start on familiar ground, then it becomes easier to build your story, because then you ask yourself, what do I want to do next, right? If you're trying to convince somebody to change course, to change their actions, I think maybe you start in the familiar place, and then you want to go to a place where you're like, hey, this is familiar. We all agree with this. Now let's talk about some problems we have. Like you're going down in the happiness scale, right? These are some of the things that we're all in the same place. We've all encountered these problems, right? And my new thing will help you solve those problems, or our new idea might help us solve those problems. And so here's what we go forward, right? That general shape of like familiar, bad, exciting, and next steps, that's a real easy way to build a story. And Laz, I hope you won't feel badly about this, but I kind of want to pick on something you said a second ago, which is, I agree, sales gets a bad rap, right? Especially among analytics folks. The idea of being a salesman of ideas is not always something that's a super popular concept. But I would push anybody listening, if you are the leader of an analytics business, you are in this position of a salesperson. I've heard from a number of great salespeople in my career. I don't think of myself as an excellent salesman. I do what I can to get by. But a mentor of mine once told me, sales is about helping people move forward in their lives, right? You have a problem, and I'm trying to figure out what solution, hopefully the solution I can offer you, will help you move forward in your life. And if you do it the right way, a lot of times we think about the used car salesman sort of example. If you do it the right way, if you're a salesperson who cares about your customer, you do it in a way that truly helps them, and you're willing to say when it's appropriate, my product's not right for you, right? The problem you have, you need to go do something else. One of my taglines around Swire that I'm really known for is data is not strategy. And one thing I've found a ton is business partners of mine, business leaders of mine come to my team or come to me, and they're looking for the data that will tell them what they need to do, and not what they need to do next, not the next step in their process. They're looking like, if we can just pour into the data, it'll tell us our position in the market. If we just pour into the data, it'll tell us the future of our company in a lot of ways. And one way in which I try to be that sort of the good salesman is to remind them like, hey, your data can help you understand how to do the things you want to do. It can understand how quickly or how you can get faster at doing the things you want to do. It can help you understand which people out there are open to the thing you're trying to sell. But there's no data that will tell you this is your company strategy. That's about vision. That's about what you see being your role in the market. And the data can help educate and refine it. But at the end of the day, looking to data to make the fundamental decisions about a company is a mistake. You'll end up going in circles, analysis paralysis, constantly looking for the number that gives you the answer. Your business fundamentally is about taking a risk, having a vision, and data can help you sharpen the course that you choose, but it's not the same thing as a company strategy. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I love that you just spent a little bit more time on the sales concept, because it's really important to break, these conceptions. The used car salesman is a perfect example, because even in that case, if you look at it, what's wrong is that it's fundamentally the wrong motivational structure there. The used car salesman doesn't not care about the relationship at all.
Yeah.
The used car salesman wants the ink to dry on the line that is dotted, and that's it.
And then if they never see you again, they're fine.
It's even better, right? It's even better. Now, this is this seems like on the surface like a good strategy, but I don't think that it was a good strategy even in the 70s, right? But it's definitely not a good strategy now, right? In the current economy. Plus, it's not even about like getting bad reviews or anything. It's all about missing out on a huge opportunity, because once you actually establish a good relationship with someone, that's where value can be generated. That's why relationship building and the ability to build relationships is inherently valuable. You meet someone and now you are on a common ground to build collaboration.